Jamie Wall, who now works for RNZ, the most trusted independent sports journal in the country. I've referred to him for years. Once again, joins us and gives us his free time. We thank you so much, mate. Ensconced in Dunedin. So, Jamie, there's always an air of excitement, isn't there, when the first team of the year gets named?
Yeah, kia ora, Martin. It's very exciting, actually. I'm really excited about this test match. I think a lot of other people are as well, just because it feels like a bit of a dawn of a new era, as well as the usual kind of anticipation about the All Black test season starting. And it was very much felt in the room when Scott Robertson came in to talk about his team that he named, because there was a few things to talk about, and then the players themselves came in. So it was a pretty good mood. Everyone was in a pretty good mood there. There was a lot of media. The English have sent down about a dozen guys, which is actually only about half that could have been here because a lot of the rest of them are covering the Euros and Wimbledon at the moment, and also gearing up to go to the Olympics. So just goes to show, just how big pulling power the All Blacks are, that many people have come all the way across the world to cover this test series.
And before we break it down and look at some of the positions, which I think will be of much interest, and just off the top of my head, I'm thinking that loose forward trio. I'm thinking 9 and 10. Obviously, the wingers, the fullback Perofeta in there. I'm reading a lot of reports coming out of Dunedin saying that there's kind of a renewed enthusiasm, renewed energy with the All Blacks. This always happens. It's kind of like a football coach. You always change your coach. There kind of feels that even though a lot of these players are the same names we've seen, they've lost a lot of tests, Jamie, as well, over the last few years. What is it about this magic wand that our man Razor has got that he seems to be convincing everyone at the moment that, he can bring a change to these same names?
Well, he's associated with success. That's pretty much the beginning, middle, and end of it. Like, everything he's done as a professional coach has ended with him lifting a trophy and doing a dance. Like, that's what people expect him to do, and that's what people are expecting him to do with the All Blacks, because it has been a tough last 4 years. It would be nice to get back to, say, the way things were 10 years ago when the All Blacks lost, 3 out of 50 odd tests.
That's right.
that they played, and get the All Blacks back to a point where we're having a conversation about, is this one of the best teams of all time?
There you go.
That's what I think the feeling is really boils down to, and I think that a lot of people want that to happen. There's this kind of perception that New Zealanders are fascinated with the All Blacks losing, but I think what we really want as a country, as a rugby country, is to be able to have a conversation with anyone else in the world, any other rugby nation, and say, yeah, sure, but we're the best at it.
That's it. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. And it's, look, I mean, for most of yours and my lifetimes, it's been like that. We've had bits and pieces and eras and in years like the last 4 where it hasn't been that. But then again, we were so close to winning a World Cup, and if we'd done that, who would have cared about the last 4 years and their results? All right, let's start. Look, the front row would have picked itself, sure. The locks, again, I'd say, yes, they picked themselves. There was only a small concern for me about whether Patrick was going to be fully fit, but obviously he is.
Yeah, he is. And like you said, that tight 5 is the easiest part of this team to predict. I can't really see anyone else getting in there, because that front row. It does say a lot about Cody Taylor, though, that he's essentially just kind of come back to playing after taking all that time off. And he almost managed to single-handedly fix the Crusaders' issues in the forwards by himself. And that there's absolutely no debate at all about him going straight back into starting a test with the All Blacks. So, that's probably the main thing from the tight 5. And, you're right about Patrick's knee. I don't know what he's done to rehab that, but whatever he's done needs to be studied by medical science, because it was supposed to be. He's gone off to see Uncle Waisaki Naholo's uncle over in Fiji.
He has. Of course he has.
Yeah.
He's put the magic leaves on, mate. Okay, so as far as the loose forward trio goes, I think most of us got Dalton at 7 and Ardy at 8. So it was pretty much a head-to-head contest between Samipeni Fino and Ethan Blackadder for 6. Is that how you saw it?
Yeah, that's the way I was seeing it. The only other potential one was Ardy moving back to 7 and there being some sort of reshuffle there, but clearly Scott Robertson sees him as a number 8. And we can sort of just move forward with that. But yeah, it did come down to Finau and Blackadder, and I think it's just because Finau's played more rugby this season and has been very consistent for the Chiefs throughout the year. And it still leaves a bit of a conversation open about whether Blackadder is the preferred guy long term, and he just needs to get some rugby or more training and rehab under his belt before he is seen as a head-to-head selection. But I am excited about Samipeni Finau and how he can go, because, blindside has been this kind of area of rotation ever since Jerome Kano moved on. So it would be nice to have someone just really grab that jersey and not let it go for the next sort of 4 years or so.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The platform.
Let us talk. We got Charlie on from the Telegraph. Charlie Morgan is the chief rugby writer for the Telegraph and joins us ahead of the first of two tests against England, Dunedin, this coming weekend. Welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks for having me.
Well, first and foremost, the England selection. Anything there that surprised you?
It's reasonably settled. Normally you see Northern Hemisphere sides, not just England, come into these tours almost limping into them with a really exhausted squad. But it's settled, and England have got a little bit of impetus behind them. There are a couple of debutants on the bench. And Finn Baxter, who's Joe Marler's deputy at Harlequins, has a little bit of coherence there. And then Ollie Slightholmes scored a lot of tries in domestic rugby over this season as well. He's a really exciting athlete. So they're not going to die wondering. It's a young side, but it's reasonably settled. And as I say, a little bit of momentum behind them, given how the Six Nations finished. So really interesting series coming up.
Yeah, and I suppose, that's the fascination from this side is how are England going to play? Because, at times during the Six Nations, it was just dreadful. But then that victory over Ireland, what is it? Does that signal a brand new way of playing and perhaps the real potential of that England side?
Yeah, I think that's bang on. I think what you've got to look at, so Steve Borthwick's been in situ now for about 18 months, and his first it was kind of a bit of a rush job. He obviously took over Eddie Jones in a reasonably short notice. So that first Six Nations was about, if you take that as the first stage, which was sort of figuring things out, figuring out the lay of the land and who he felt were worth taking forward as far as players. Then you had the World Cup, and he stripped things back and relied on really hard-nosed, experienced players. And now this Six Nations, 2024 Six Nations, has been sort of his time to put his stamp on that. And that happened slowly. That was a gradual process. So for the first couple of games, they eked past Italy and Wales, and you were kind of squinting to see signs of progress. Then against Scotland up at Murrayfield, who are a bit of a bogey team for England at the minute, there were a hell of a lot of errors. But what they kind of impressed and what kind of, I guess the message they were trying to get across from that was that they were pushing the boat out, and they were trying new things in attack and trying a little bit more of an expansive approach. And then that came to fruition against Ireland, and then again against France, even though they didn't get over the line. And that's where that impetus that I'm talking about has come from, those last two games of the Six Nations. And then they carried that on, albeit with a few kind of more overeager errors against Japan. They got a comfortable win there. And that's where they arrive at this series. It's been 18 months for Steve Borthwick in charge, but you could definitely split it up into distinctive stages.
How much confidence can England glean from the Ireland team that came down here a couple of years ago and actually won a series? Got well beaten on the scoreboard, even though, that didn't really tell the tale of the game at Eden Park, but then bounced back to win in Dunedin was the crucial one, their first win here in the country, and then sealed it in Wellington.
It's tricky, isn't it? Because I think Ireland then were further along than England are now. But then again, it was a different, probably more settled and experienced New Zealand side as well. I think what's interesting is that traditionally you'd say that Northern Hemisphere sides have their best chance in that first game. It's been eight months since the All Blacks have played. So you'd think that with 6 tests in that time, England would be more settled, even though they're probably a younger side. But yeah, as you say, Ireland were pumped pretty much, weren't they? In that first game, New Zealand were really clinical off turnover ball, I seem to remember.
Yeah.
And then Ireland sort of steadied themselves and got back in. I'd say that it's so different, but I think what that Ireland side had was real conviction in the way they played, and I think that's what you really get with Steve Borthwick in charge. And for this Six Nations, he's had Felix Jones there as defence coach, and those two are really sort of a bit of a brains trust with Rich Wigglesworth in charge of the attack, and him coming to the fore, or his influence, coming to the fore in the Ireland and France games, certainly. So there'll be confidence there that it's possible to do, albeit in a 3-test series rather than 2-test series. So England are going to have to start quicker than Ireland did, but very, very different situations, I'd say.